All right, dude. So what we're going to do is learn how to do crackle bass like this. So you can see really what it looks like when it crackles. But what you're going to need is, to start out with, you're going to need basing glue. You're going to need the technical mordant earth, whatever, from Citadel. And then you're going to need a white paint. And then you're going to need a kind of fluorescent neon paint from War Paints. They're rather cheaper than Citadel, but radiation glow, lens flare, plasma glow, or power node glow. To start out with the base first, because you can then just glue the model on top of it. Because what happens is when you put the crackle down, it's this thick liquid. Over time, I usually let it sit overnight. It starts to dry up and create these cracks, hence the name Crackle. But what you want to do before you even think about doing that is put primer on. I might have put too much there. Make sure you get a good amount to spread all over. I like to get the sides too because I like the crackle to go on the side sometimes. If I've got enough of it. A bottle like this, I'll show you. This is the tall bottle. That's about $7. It's expensive to do this. For the 40-inch, or not the 40-inch, but the 40-millimeter bases, you probably can do 3 of them. Yeah. So once that's primed, we're going to want to let it sit. Some people like to use a spray primer. I only like to use spray primer when I'm doing larger things. But for things like this and smaller ones, as you can see here, I like to prime them because I can get in there a little bit more as I go along. So we're going to let that sit, and then I'll come back and put some white on it when it's all dry. But now that this is dry, you're going to want to put, you're actually going to put like 2 coats of white on here, just to make sure it's like real nice and white, and the black from the base isn't coming through, as well as the primer. There are different things to do so you don't get your hands on here. So what I like to do here is actually take some sticky tacky tape or whatever it is you can put posters on your wall with. Take some of this stuff, bunch it up, put it on like a old pill bottle, and then set it right on there. And that way it doesn't move around. And so you can go on and paint it without having to worry about getting your hands all painted up like this. Now there are different things too that you can use to actually hold your base if you have your model already glued on it. Sometimes people like to glue their models on the base and then paint them. And what they look like are these things. So you go ahead and some people do that and then they paint from there. I guess I'm not too picky on how I do it. So let this dry, and then you're going to want to put a second coat on there of white. Okay, round 2 for white paint. This is going to be the second coat, and this is all I'm going to put on there as far as white goes, unless like I'm just not happy with how much of the primer and the black is being hidden. It doesn't have to be pretty. It doesn't have to be neat. I don't know why I'm weird. I like to make everything go the same way after I get it, kind of spread out. Not sure why. I think that's a little obsessive, but that's me. And then again, just get the sides. Try to don't leave big lines. I think I'm leaving some big lines, kind of that are building up, it'll cause bumps once it dries. Try not to do that. And try not to do that on your models. because that's going to leave like a weird texture to it, whereas you want your paint on your models and your bases to be flat, so you get that, just that smooth look on your models, and kind of see what I'm talking about when you look at the leg there and the butt plate and stuff like that. You just want it to be nice and smooth, because if not, you get it chunky and it looks gross and it doesn't look good, and people hate you and you never make friends. I'm kidding, but like what the white does is allow it to pop a lot more and a lot better. So once you put that crackle on, it's really going to kind of like show and glow through. Now I have actually 3 coats of white on here. Second coat wasn't white enough. This is the first time I've like done anything like combined colors. So what I'm going to do is just, and you're going to put a few coats on of each color, well, of the color. If you, I would say do 1 the first time around so you get the hang of it. This might turn out that it sucks. So what you're going to want to do is kind of put a few layers on it, but after you put 1, let it dry, and then keep adding them as you go. Now, as far as how long you let it dry for, because these are going to be thinner, like thinner paints, thinner liquids, I would 5-10 minutes. They should be pretty dry. You're going to want to go over a few times. One thing I will say is that they will kind of look blotchy like this and turn out a lot of blotchy if you still paint it while it's still wet, because you're pulling the paint off that hasn't dried yet. As you paint over these, and you can, with the lens flare glow, you can kind of see it's bright, but with the blue, you're gonna have to put a few layers on that, but it'll still be kind of have that glow effect once it dries and you got those layers on. So go ahead and do that. Now that my colors are in and they're about dry enough, we can use the basing glue from Army Painter to put on top of the color. Basically what this will do is make sure it'll secure the coloring, so when the crackle starts to shrink and crack up, it doesn't pull the paint off of the base. It'll actually keep the paint on the base, and it won't ruin the paint job. So what you'll do is just you put a little bit there, and you might need more than that. So this one, you can always, it's always good to have more, but you're going to just spread it around with your finger, and it's going to look like it's got this, it's like a white film cover. Just make sure you spread it around and you get it on the sides. If you have to put more on to make sure you get the sides, you can do that. Just keep going around. But don't worry about that like white film look, because I don't know if you can see it, but right now you've got that there. But give it a few minutes and it actually will go away. And it will look like there's nothing on there at all. So make sure you put that on there after you get your coats done of your paint. Like I said, I think I have 5 layers of each paint. I decided to do the 2 colors. We're going to let that dry on there. So now this is dry, and as you can see, it's clear. There's no really white film on it. It is a little bit glossier. It'll be super smooth when it dries correctly. And that's when you know it's ready to be hit with the technical paint. Okay, so I would suggest using a popsicle stick. I didn't have any, so I ate a popsicle to so I can have a popsicle stick. Try not to use brushes because you'll ruin the brushes. So yeah, try to use something like a popsicle stick that you can throw away after. So it's going to be super thick and just goopy, and it's going to be, yeah, it's just a really thick substance. And when you put it on, you're going to want to put it everywhere, on the sides, on the top, and you're going to want a good amount on there. So let me reach in, and it's going to come out kind of big and thick and chunky like that. I'll try to get closer. And you're just going to like baste it on there. And you can start like put a little layer on top. That way you can start like that. But you're going to want to keep adding more to it. And I mean, like, you're probably going to end up using like half of the bottle. It's, to me, I feel like it's an expensive, like, cool little effect you can make for your minis, but you just got to be ready to drop, you know, $7-10 to be able to make like 2 of these at this size. And you're going to want to have more than that. If you can see on top, you're going to want to like twice as much on the top of it. And it sometimes is, there we go. And that's going to be about the amount that we want. And you're going to want to make sure you get it on the sides too. This can get like really, I think this is the cleanest I've been able to keep this since I've started doing these. And man, I should have just went and bought some popsicle sticks at the craft store for like next to nothing and saved myself a few brushes and a whole lot of like cleanup. But on the sides, you're not going to be able to have it as thick because it'll still run a little bit. So it's okay to like do a little thin layer there, but, and you can still see that some surface area is exposed. So just go ahead and cover that back up. I don't think there is any such thing as having too much on top. Now you can see I'm kind of getting a little crazy on the bottom, or on the sides. It's kind of like dripping off, but again, you're going to want a good amount. And I would even put more on it, only because I know I'm going to have to buy another bottle. This is a brand new bottle, but I want to make sure this comes out. The more you have on there, the better chance you have to get like chunkier cracks. If you have a thin amount, you're going to have a thin amount of cracks like I did on my Venerable Dreadnought. 20 hours later, after I let it start to dry, I am all done with it. You can see that as it, like, the cracks, the crackle are perfect size. This is the size I like. Nice and chunky with some small ones starting to get on the outside. The paint job didn't turn out too bad, but if you look, you can see some white was pulled. As it was drying, it pulled the paint off, so that's why it's important to glue, or else you're going to get a lot of that. No worries, though. You can always cover it up when you put the mini on. So after this is done, and it's been, 12 to 20 hours like I did, I think, you take your mini. I know this has already got a base, but I'm just going to use an example. So Grandmaster Voldus here. You put the paint on the bottom of his feet, on each side, super glue or plastic glue, but for this case I would probably use super glue. Just let that dry. I wouldn't probably touch it for 30 minutes to make sure it's safe. Now, one thing that you'll want to do is hit it with some varnish. So I use this on my drawings, but you go ahead and once your mini is glued on there and you're happy with the paint job and you're not going to add anything, you give it a good spray all around, and you'll actually turn out with a pretty nice gloss to it. You can kind of see the shine off the crackle there, versus when you look at one that hasn't been hit with the gloss. It's very dull. It's very matte looking. So I always suggest to keep your paints from chipping away, wearing out, and keeping it looking nice and bright. Hit it with that gloss. It should cost between $7 and $8. Make sure you use that. And yeah, the hardest part is just waiting for things to dry, because the rest of the time you're just slopping paint and really thick crackle paint on there. Okay, that's it. Pretty easy.